Test 1, 2. Hey, we figured this out, guys. All right. I think we're good. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Unleashed here. Good morning to you. Somebody give me a thumbs up here. I think we're okay. For some reason, the screen went blank, and there he is. That's right. All right, good. Good morning, everybody. So we've got a little Knicks. We've got a little hot stove today, and I do want to get back to the Giants out of the chute here. So, man, this is absolutely amazing. What could happen for the Giants? See, what I find really interesting is the way we talk about the Giants all these years, because they forced us to talk about them this way because they've been a train wreck. They basically morphed into the New York Jets. And what we're going to find out is how other people perceive the Giants organization, which to me is really all that matters. I mean, you look, and I know that we've lived this, but when you actually listen to this, right? And this is stuff that as Giant fans, you've gone through and we've gone through, but when you actually just start to look at what they've actually done with 2 playoff appearances in 14 years, you had the 1 wild card win, and then even going back to the litany of coaches, Coughlin, McAdoo, Shermer, Judge, Dable, obviously Spags, and Kafka as interims. You've had multiple general managers. You've had some ugly trades and maybe some PR situations which were a bit, less than optimal, if you will, and it's really been like the perception of the Giants has just dropped to, I don't want to say an all-time low because, we all know historically the 70s were really unkind to the Giants, but like it was such a different world. Yeah, you're going to get beat up in the papers and get buried in the newspapers, but, you can kind of, I don't know if the right word is hide here, but you can kind of get away with, some rough, lean years and still blend in, if you're a dysfunctional franchise, as the Giants have been for a while. So, and not only dysfunctional, like it's one thing to be a bad franchise and simply not win, but there's not a lot of noise. There's just a lot of losses. And then there's a lot of coaches. And then there's a lot of GMs. And then obviously when you're bad for a long time, you're getting top picks. And if you remain bad for a long time, those top picks obviously aren't coming to fruition. Like that's one aspect of it. And there's a lot of teams in sports that have to deal with that. But like the Giants situation's been coupled and made messier by the fact that I think that they've complicated their own world. So they've got a lifeline here. They are getting thrown a bone where like the timing couldn't be more serendipitous. They made the decision, and rightfully so, to move on from Dable, and they had to do that, and they did. And then they made the decision to, for some reason, none of us really understand this. We don't know why they're doing this, but to keep Joe Schoen in the building. Now, I do think that you can work around that. Like if, and again, I'm obviously talking about Harbaugh and to a lesser extent Stefanski, and then, McCarthy and like if Tomlin shakes free. But the perception of the Giants right now is horrendous. So when you have that perception, you're going to have to overpay to convince somebody to come and save you. And that's the contract. And the Giants have the money. Their most recent valuation is through the roof. They sold what? 10% of the team, which equates to a ton of, disposable cash here. So the Giants really, they've got the financial means. I think every NFL team really, if you think the way about the way the NFL is run versus baseball, like I don't care if you're in a small market like Jacksonville, wherever you are, if you want to be bold and you want to do something and hire, just like when they lured Urban Meyer away from college and give him a lot of money, you could do that. Whereas like, the Twins or the Pirates or the Rays or some teams like that, the A's, before they get really, profitable out there in Las Vegas, there are just financial limitations that you just have to work around, where that's not the case in the NFL. So the Giants have a license to spend. The Giants have the means to spend. The problem won't be the money. Like, there's no doubt, whatever it is, 13 a year, I don't know, 14 a year, maybe 15, whatever somebody like John Harbaugh is going to command, the Giants will very freely and willingly write that check, and they've got the resources to do it. The issue is if the Giants, this is the one thing that cannot happen. I understand you're going to talk to everybody, do your due diligence, talk to the assistants, talk to the, you just had dinner with Stefanski, do all these things that you're doing, which is smart. All right, flip over every rock, go through every possible combination of and just ride the process out, which they're doing. But there's going to come a point, and this is what should worry the Giant fans. There's going to come a point where Harbaugh, at some point, is going to say, All right. I believe in Dart. Hey, I revere the Giants. I've always revered the franchise. I want to be the guy to get them back on solid footing, elevate the brand, restore, not even elevate, really restore the brand. Because with the Giants, there's got to be a restoration. And that's really what it comes down to. And that is a big, big job made easier by the fact that you've got the presence of a quarterback that I think we all like. And most of us really, really believe in terms of top level upside here. But I am still worried about the Giants, getting in their own way here if and when Harbaugh or lesser extent the other guys say, hey, listen, I want to come, contract's done, we're good on the money, we're in line with the parameters. I can't work with Joe Schoen. I have no interest in doing that. I don't know him. I've got no connection to him. I want to bring in my guy. And if the Giants, now I don't think that they'll do this, but we've got to at least flush through the possibility. If the Giants allow that to happen, and there's a moment of inflection where Harbaugh or one of the top candidates doesn't feel as if the Giants are on the same page with him in terms of what he's demanding, well, now the Giants have a massive issue because as we talked about yesterday, hey, we can run through it, and I'm not going to do it again because I've already done it twice, but we can run through, and we have, and it's on other podcasts if you guys want to check it out. Previous shows on YouTube, it's all up there, the content, BT Unleashed. But we've gone through what's available, what teams have salary cap, what teams have desirable situations in terms of ownership and ones you want to run away from. Everybody knows that. That's already been established. Everything's been laid out in that regard. We know who they're looking at. We know who they like. We know who's available, right? Although the extra layer of complication, because there's 6 openings right now, I'm not counting the Ravens for Harbaugh, and there are 3 situations, well, there's really 7, but three that are, I think, centrally paramount to how Harbaugh is going to really view the Giants here. If the Bills lose to Jacksonville, if Philly doesn't play well against San Francisco, and if somehow, the Steelers, I shouldn't even say somehow, I think the Texans are going to win that game, but if optically it looks off and it looks sloppy and it's just okay, like the Ravens made the determination with Harbaugh, the Steelers, who are more patient historically in terms of letting people go, then if they are forced into a situation where they've got to, they feel they've got to move on from Tomlin, you've got 3 very appealing situations. Who wouldn't want to coach Josh Allen? Who wouldn't want to go to Philly with Howie Roseman, especially somebody like Harbaugh who was there? And who wouldn't want to be a part of the Steelers fabric? Who wouldn't want to be a part of that brand? So there is no way, under no circumstance can the Giants remain beholden to Joe Schoen. And I don't even mean to the extent where there's a marginalization that's very clearly communicated to John Harbaugh, where it's hey, listen, we got it. We're going to bring him back, but it's your show, and we're going to even work that in the contract and do that. However they'll do that, the agents will do that. If John Harbaugh doesn't want Joe Schoen around, then the Giants absolutely have to tell Joe Schoen, I'm sorry, you're out. That's it. And that is the one thing that I don't know if I'd use the word worry, but that's the one thing that I'm very aware of. And I think it's the one possible real impediment that might get in the way of hiring somebody like John Harbaugh, who, as I've chronicled, is tremendous. I do think he's slightly overrated. I think there's an elevation. Maybe it's the Harbaugh name. Maybe it's the stability of the Ravens. Maybe it's the fact that he's been in one place for 18 years. Maybe it's the fact that he does have the one Lombardi trophy. Maybe it's the fact that he's worked well up until recently with a young quarterback, 2-time MVP. I don't know. To me, the other side of the coin is there's also a little, not enough hesitation not to hire him. I mean, I love Harbaugh, but I do think that when you juxtapose what he's done and you line it up, as I have already, on yesterday's show with Mike McCarthy, I don't think it's as much of a layup as many of you do. Now, that's just an opinion thing. What's not an opinion is that they're basically the same age. Harbaugh's 63. Mike is 62. They both coach literally 18 years in the NFL. They both have a 61 win percent rate in the regular season. They both got a Super Bowl. And, oh, yeah, by the way, and this seems to be omitted a little bit, and this is just a football thing independent of the Schoen Giants connection just for a moment. I actually think, with both men, to be fair, because I don't think that McCarthy's better than Harbaugh. I just think he's, for whatever reason, not perceived to be on the same level as Harbaugh, which to me is just factually untrue based on what I just told you. Now you want to tell me you think Harbaugh projects as more of a leader of men. All right, we could have that conversation. I don't really know how you quantify that. I don't know how you substantiate that with any sort of fact because, the things that I think you can look at Mike McCarthy with and say, well, he had Aaron Rodgers, who was amazing, a top quarterback of all time. And while Lamar Jackson clearly is not Aaron Rodgers in the pantheon of NFL quarterbacks historically, I mean, he's in his 20s, late 20s, but he's in his prime and he's got multiple MVPs. And too many times we saw the Ravens walk off the field on the wrong side of the scoreboard in a big game, a game that maybe a slightly better coach than Harbaugh would have punched through. I think Coughlin finds a way to win there. I think that certainly guys like Belichick and Parcells and, the best of the best, I think they find a way to get to a Super Bowl with Lamar. So those are things that I look at and I do in the full, honest, A to Z, as transparent as you could possibly have, evaluation of potential Giant coaches. I think it's a great option. And again, I'll use the word that I used before. I think it's serendipitous where, like the Giants, they finally have a quarterback that's appealing, which makes their job incredibly appealing. But I am still very surprised, even after yesterday's show and some of the reactions that a lot of you had, because I've then posted it on Instagram and obviously it's on YouTube and all the comments. And some of you agree with me. And I don't need you to agree with me. That's fine. I'm just telling you what I see and what I feel. What I don't get, and it's frustrating because at some point, guys, at some point, you've got to deal with a factual basis. And when I ask you, it's a very direct question. What separates for you? Like, why is John Harbaugh thought to be the savior for the Giants? And I'm not saying he can't be, but he's positioned as that guy right now. And Mike McCarthy is positioned as, I don't want Mike McCarthy. I'm just not feeling Mike McCarthy. And again, I don't know why. I'd love to have the answer. Haven't gotten one intelligent answer based, backed up by fact. I've got a lot of opinions. He looks more like a coach. He doesn't run a country club. Well, okay, maybe there's something to be said, and maybe that could be backed up by some people around the NFL. But I believe that it's appealing to me when you work at multiple stops and you have multiple levels of success, okay? Meaning you won in Green Bay, and you should have won another one with Rodgers. I'm not here to dispute that. When you have Aaron Rodgers and, you are regularly the 1 seed or the 2 seed with 12, 13 wins as he even more than like he had in Green Bay, one is not good enough. Now, for the Jets, we'll take one. For the Giants, where it's been a minute, we'll take one. But when you're rolling out Rodgers for more than a decade in his absolute prime, I got no problem saying there's an element of underachievement with McCarthy. But I also say the same thing with John Harbaugh. And I also, myself, now some of you don't do this and that's fine, I place value in being able to do your thing in more than one spot. So he's with Green Bay, wins a ton of games, wins a Super Bowl, then he goes to Dallas. All right. Now, Dallas is like the Yankees. It's a totally different monster. I don't care if you win 12 games. I don't care if you elevate your quarterback to, top 2, top 3 in the MVP, which he did for Dak Prescott, by the way. Don't forget about that. I don't care that that level of success means nothing to the fans and really to the national media because Dallas is always a main story. And as I said yesterday, much like the Yankees can win 94 games, tie with Toronto, or previous years win 100 games or 99 with Boone and not get to or win the World Series. And it's less than, and it's positioned differently than other teams who get to that level. And that's part of the game. I understand, that standard was set by the Yankees. That standard was set by the Dallas Cowboys based on years. Now, the Yankee standard is a lot higher than the Dallas standard, but in terms of the historical context, they're on the same plane. Their brands are platinum. And it doesn't matter if you win 11 or 12 or 13 games. If you don't get to the Super Bowl, you fail. But I do place value. I always have and I always will because it shows a transferable skill set. And those are two very different. Not that I don't think that John would go to the Giants and transfer what he does well to them. I absolutely believe that he would. But there's evidence that McCarthy's already done that in 2 spots. And this is not to get on the Mike McCarthy soapbox with a pulpit and shove Mike McCarthy down your throat. I just remain confused based on the interactions that we've had on the show, on social media. There just seems to be a completely different energy for a guy who literally has done the same thing as the guy that many of you are denigrating. I don't know why. Like, let's go to Pat Riley for a sec, right? I've used the word, and neither one of these gentlemen is Pat Riley. We'll do a little Knicks in a little bit. Good job by the Knicks. Needed to see that, Knicks, Good job. Last night looked like a little bit of a pride check for the New York Knicks, which I'll hit in a bit. But Pat Riley, think about the way Pat Riley won. And I think this is a great way to look at. Now, baseball is a little different because the manager has less influence, right? Because there's not necessarily a style in baseball. In the NBA, you could jack up 43s, you could slow the pace, you can have a deep bench, you can run out 7 or 8 guys a night like Tom Thibodeau did. There's many different ways to attack an NBA game, much like there's many different ways to attack an NFL game. Are you run heavy? Are you pass heavy? Do you have more of a balance? Do you, hire a DC who's blitzing all day? Do you lay back? Are you opportunistic with the blitz? So that's basic stuff. But back to Riley for a minute. Pat Riley, to me, is the greatest example, more so than Phil Jackson, more so than any Red Holtzman, 2 championships with the Knicks in 69 and 73, more so than Casey Jones, who won a couple with the Birds crew with the Celtics in the 80s. You can't find an NBA coach, even Kerr with all those championships, Popovich, one spot. The thing to me that always separates Pat Riley, and by extension, always separates, for me, Bill Parcells, more than Belichick, more than Lombardi, more than Landry, more than Chuck Noll, is the ability to win not only in different places, but stylistically have something completely different from your previous spot. And now, many of you didn't really see Pat Riley coaching and I was fairly young myself, but I was obviously old in the NBA even then. So I'm watching it. I don't know that I was processing it this way, but Pat Riley won with the Lakers with, a prototype as a point guard, 6'9" Magic, running the show up and down the court, worthy, Byron Scott, fast break, trying to run you out of the gym. But they also had the half court option, tight game, late. All right, let's get it to the big boy down low. Let's get that sky hook. Go get us, big fella. Lead us, Kareem. So that was one way that he won. And then when he came to the Knicks, it was such a rebranding. Like, it was really you couldn't have a more different approach. It was the complete antithesis because the Lakers would try to score 130, and the Knicks with Riley and Ewing and Mason, Oak, and all our guys, he would try to and did win more times than not, 90 to 86, 87, 81. No, high-scoring game. Hubert Davis hit a couple of threes, 94, 89. So he did that. And it was a totally different style. And it was seamless for him. It was an immediate transition, an immediate recognition. Here's what I'm inheriting. Here's how we're playing. And here's how we're winning. There was no conversations. There was no deviations. Now, the Knicks didn't win the championship. They should have. Ewing, we love him. Got outplayed by Olajuwon. No crime. One of the best players of all time. I think Olajuwon's 9 or 10 or 11 in the NBA. I think he's that good. I think he's the most underrated player in the history of the NBA. But Riley did what he did there. And then when he went to Miami, he showed further adaptability, and he won kind of a little bit of a hybrid, even though those early Heat teams, going back to Hardaway and Zoe, Vashawn Leonard was one of their shooters, Marley, they very, very much were a mirror image of how the Knicks tried to play. That's why those games were so, they were rock fights. They were street fights because everybody knew what the other guy was doing. They were all locked in defensively. Neither team had a ton of great shooters. It's pre-modern NBA. So there was really one template that both teams were subscribing to. So you got a lot of low scoring and a lot of knockdown street fights, right? Which was great. It wasn't appealing to everybody. But again, the point is it showed the adaptability of Pat Riley. Now, that leads me back to McCarthy. McCarthy, I'm not saying that he won differently in Dallas, even though he didn't win the championship, but he won 12 games 3 times in a row for a franchise that was scuffling. That was all over the map. Up, down, Jerry's presence, the fans' expectations, the national media presence, right? And he won a lot of games. And to me, I just think that there's additional value. Like there's additional bonus points. I know that sounds crazy, but there's bonus points when you win in one spot and then you pack up shop, take your, whatever your mantra is and your MO, you go to a new spot that's totally different. Like the glitz of Dallas and the blue collar, bitter cold, scrappy mentality of Green Bay. Anything but fancy, right? And he won. Now, I'm not saying if John Harbaugh is the coach of the Giants, I fully expect the Giants to get up and running. Let's say he's coaching them next year. Giants will win 9 games because the Giants probably should have won 8 games this year. You should have closed out the Bears game. Maybe even if Dart was playing early, could have beat the Commanders early on. Not to mention Denver, all the other collapses that we chronicled chapter and verse that I'm not going to get back into now. So he will win, and he will win right away. But I look at John Harbaugh, and like he's not an A-plus candidate, and that's fine. Now he's an A-plus of this crop, but I'm still worried that the Giants are going to show and they haven't even talked to him yet, as they communicate with him and they meet with him and they get in the weeds on what he wants to do and what they're willing to let him do, all that stuff. I just fear that there's going to be a reluctance on their part to let him do whatever he wants to do. And I go back to Joe Schoen. I really do. I go back to Joe Schoen. The funny thing, too, is like with Joe, it seems like a bit of a contradiction, but it's not, right? So the coach's job is to win. And that's why that first year when the Giants won 9 games and beat the Vikings in the wild card, to me, and Sal and I talked about this, and we were in agreement on this, that was more Dable. Because Brian Dable, the ability to influence the roster when you first become the GM is almost impossible. I mean, you inherit the quarterback, you inherit the O-line, which was not good that year. You inherit Saquon. All right, some maybe moves within the margins, pick up this guy off the waiver wire, whatever. But your fingerprints are not really fully yet on the roster. So to me, that was a direct correlation. Dable coaching up Jones, very few turnovers, protect the ball, have Daniel Jones run. Giants won it. It was a fun year. Now, as you get deeper into the Dable-Schoen regime, well, now the influence becomes more and more and more and more for the GM. And you hope that the coaching influence not only remains the same, but based on an increase of talent and now a greater familiarity of the roster, that even that would get better. All right. So I want to be fair to Joe in this regard, even though I don't fully buy it. We're all saying Joe should be gone, and I stand by that. I've said that for a year. I wouldn't have brought back Dable or Schoen going into this year. I've said that, right? But now, to me, it's borderline untenable. Like, there's no reason that he should still be the general manager of the Giants. But if we say, and it's true because we lived it, that the Giants should have won at least 3 or 4, maybe one more game than that. Well, if we're saying that, and it's largely true, shouldn't that be more of a positive reflection on Joe Schoen? Because really what you're saying is you lost by circumstances, not because you didn't have the horses to compete, to be in games, to build leads before you flush them away in the fourth quarter like they routinely did. And I think that that's kind of gotten away as we diagnose the Joe Schoen era. Now, on more of the micro level, it's Joe Schoen's fault that the kicker was always a mess. Like, that's him. You're the general manager. Figure it out. You didn't. Too often you went into a game where, my groin, my knee, can I kick? Can I not? Do you have a second kicker? Like, those are the clerical things that Joe Schoen bombed on, right? He also, Neil, who is just a zero. Thibodeau, who is okay. I would trade him. I would not invest big money in him moving forward. You guys know that. He popped a little bit here and there. Is he really the guy that you thought you were getting in the draft in the top 10? The answer is no. And if you think that that's suddenly going to happen, I would challenge you and say that I would respectfully disagree. However, hold on, my in-laws are going, guys, safe travels. Grammy, see ya. Love you. Tell Popeye I say goodbye. Love you guys. I mean, this is what they're leaving. I could see the door to the garage open, and I wanted to say goodbye. They were in from Dallas for a few days for my son's birthday. There's a lot here, and it could be a little complicated, but it doesn't have to be, which is the ultimate point. As long as the Giants understand that to get somebody like Harbaugh, there's going to have to be a concession, a stripping of power from Joe Schoen, or if one of these gentlemen, and I mean more so Harbaugh than anybody else, because I don't think you'd bestow that ultimate power on somebody like Stefanski yet at this age with the experience, no Super Bowls, but somebody like Harbaugh, somebody like McCarthy they've earned that latitude to do that, to express themselves. And hey, you want me and I want you, but I don't want to work with this guy. If that's communicated, it's got to be gone. And that is the only potential speed bump that I fear. Because, one of the great things about really good franchises is stability, right? Now, again, I've been all over Brian Cashman for years. Brian Cashman has not earned the right to rebuild the Yankees the way the Yankees need to be rebuilt. I mean, how many times did you hear that on the morning show? You heard it all the time when it first happened. That was 4 years ago. I've been saying this, right? So Cashman has presented me with some, things I don't agree with, and I voiced that. But I've always been very quick to then say, yeah, but I mean, he's doing a whole hell of a lot more, and so is Hal, and at least giving the Yankees a chance to, be on that top line, if you will, and have a chance to win a World Series. Now, I'm not getting into the weeds of the Yankees now, though I do have a thought on the Cabrera trade after the Knicks stuff in a minute, so I'll get to that. By the way, fire the questions, and I'll start reading a bunch in a bit and attack that. But at least you know that, like, the Yankees are going to have a chance to win. But the thing that's frustrating is that there's such a reluctance to make change. And I think that reluctance has led them from being less than a World Series team. All right, that's just my opinion. I mean, it's also backed up in fact, since they haven't won in 2009. But I readily admit Cashman's done a good job. He just no longer does a great job. But the Yankees never morph into the Giants. They just don't do it. Giants had what? 2 3-win seasons, 2 4-win seasons in the last 14 years, whatever it's been, where they've had 2 playoff appearances. Like, the Yankees they don't let that happen because they're the Yankees. Now, I appreciate the stability, but at the end, there's still frustration because it's a little less than. The Giants have tried to become more stable like they were, and that was one of the great things about the New York Giants. Like, and I don't mean, listen, every great franchise is going to have a Hanley, or a Judge, or a Shermer, even a Dable. Like, the problem is it's been going back to back to back to back. And I just feel like too many times the Giants, where the results don't back this up, they are almost trying to force feed consistency down our throat, that there's now a reluctance to just get somebody out of the building who very well might have to leave the building if the guy that you really want, we all know Harbaugh is the Giants' number 1 choice. If he wants him out, are they going to show that same lack of willingness? And if they do, then shame on the New York Giants. You can't, I mean, let's just call for let's be as blunt as you can humanly be. If the Giants, and I'm not even saying that I think that they will, and it's not me straddling the fence. I honestly don't know. But if the Giants allow the presence of Joe Schoen to get in the way of hiring John Harbaugh, then the Giants are idiots, period. End of statement, end of story. Nothing else to say. Like, that's all you need to see. If that were to happen, you want to talk about a PR nightmare? And then could you imagine? Now, this will be worst case situation. And I don't think that this will happen, because then I think they can pivot to a Stefanski, who I do like. He's young. He's won twice with a wretched franchise, basically the Jets of Ohio. And there's appeal there, because I think there's a lot of upside. And he's won without that real quarterback, unlike, a Harbaugh who's got Lamar, McCarthy who's had Rodgers, Dak, whatever. But, I am a little, at least aware, even if I don't use the word fearful, a little aware of the remote possibility that they flinch with the Shane stuff, turns Harbaugh off, or Brady does a sales pitch and Harbaugh loves Mendoza. Like, I went through this yesterday. To think that it's a layup with Harbaugh to the G-men, I think is asinine. The desire's there, but now you got to get it done. And there's other appealing options. And let's say he goes somewhere else. And let's say, the Giants like McCarthy, but they don't love him. And let's say Stefanski, who is all about the Giants at this point, and who they wined and dined 2 nights ago, and met with yesterday extensively. Well, maybe he gets a little turned off by not feeling the love. I mean, if the Giants project all this adulation and shower all of their attention and their love for John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, I mean, I don't know what he's thinking, but it's human nature. The possibility of him sitting there saying, I mean, do these guys want me or not? Screw you. I got this situation in wherever. I'll go to the Raiders, or I'll go to the Falcons, who have a stud tight end, a stud wide receiver, a stud running back, some money to play with, a pretty good O-line, pretty good place to live down south. Like, there's other options. And if they don't play, and it's the easiest thing to do. All they got to say is Mr. Mara, everybody else, but it's really him. Tish, you know what? All right, you don't want him here. I got you. We want you that much. He's out. Would they be that bold? I don't know. And yeah, you can kind of cut the difference and reposition him a little bit. And then maybe Joe Schoen would say, no, I'm good. I don't know. But like marginalize him for another year and let Harbaugh have the power, have it written into the contract. I'm not saying that there's not a way to get this done where Joe Schoen is still in the building. All I'm saying is if it's presented to them and they flinch, then they're dopes because Joe Schoen has not been good enough at his job to get in the way of somebody who's really good at his job coming in to save your morbid, pathetic franchise, which is what has to happen. That's it. It's really that simple. Yeah. 2 playoff appearances in 14 years. The one wild card win. My God. And it was, 2 3-win seasons, 3 4-win seasons, 5 of the 14 years. So almost 33% of the run, this 14-year of ineptitude, right? 5 times in 14 years. So more than 33%. They have won 3 games or less. Like, it's not like, the Giants kind of lost their way. It's like, wow, the Giants suck. They suck. And when you are that bad, you better make sure that somebody like Schoen doesn't get in the way. And I'm not trying to rail on Joe Schoen. I'm not trying to be that guy. Hey, you don't think that I'm sensitive to job security? If anybody's sensitive to job security, it's me. The one difference is, Joe Schoen gets sent the door. Joe Schoen's got millions upon millions upon millions sitting in the bank. I got to start a show on YouTube and on Twitter, which, by the way, is doing well. So I'm always sensitive to that stuff. And I always, and even on the fan, like Tom Thibodeau, and even Buck at the end when I think the Mets rightly decided to move on from Buck. I thought that was getting stale. I am the type of person who just, and it's probably old, like you don't always want to have to preface, as you're saying something, if you always preface it, it's annoying. But that's important to me. So anytime there's an issue of job security or potential issue of job security, I try to preface it with the human element because, I'm here now and others have been there. And many of you watching this have been there, if not all of you on some level at some point in your life. So it's not about just taking a wrecking ball to Joe Schoen's reputation or just be that guy who's just unnecessarily mean. Guy hasn't done a good job. That's the most honest evaluation. It really is. So, all right, let me get some of these questions. I believe that this should work here. Okay, so now is this true? So McDaniel was just fired. Is that true? Yep, he's gone. Okay, so let me see here. Hey, look at that. We played little bells and whistles here. Here we go. I told you, and I did that without my son who's in school. All right, here we go. Thank you. This is great. Sweet potato. Sweet potato. Instead of Mike in Jersey on the fan, it's sweet potato on Twitter and YouTube. It's all good. And he says, McDaniel fired in Miami. John Harbaugh will be the new coach. Well, this is what I'm talking about here. And that is why when I ran through the 6 openings, but also the potential for an opening in Miami, and thank you for the text there, sweet potato. When I talked about Miami, maybe Dallas, lesser extent Dallas, but certainly Miami was always prominently on my mind. And I said that as one of the other spots. Yeah, Miami, the Bills, of course, if they don't win and they don't play well, that will be appealing. Yeah, I mean, geez, if you're John Harbaugh, now the difference there is you don't have a quarterback. You got better weather, the taxes are better, the lifestyle better. You're not sitting on, well, not that he'd be on the Bell Parkway, but, you're not going to be on the Garden State or the Turnpike, bumper to bumper at the wrong time. Is that more appealing? It very well might be. And this is one of the many complicated aspects of the Giants trying to hire the right guy. So as now the flirtation with Miami comes on John Harbaugh, well, now the Giants, they got to play this deck properly where, all right, that's our focus. But, hey, Stefanski, you still feel the love. McCarthy, you're still engaged. And these coordinators, we're talking to you. This is a big, big undertaking. And it's a very tricky dance. So, I don't know how easily it's going to be, how easy it's going to be to get him here. Let's see here. Pop it up. Serpico, isn't it as simple as if Harbaugh wants the job, it's his? This sure seems to be the perception around football from what I've seen. Yeah, I would think so, Serpico, sure. But now something like Miami and some of these other appealing openings, those are two different things. If Harbaugh wants the job, it's going to be his, provided the Giants don't mess it up, which, again, I don't think that they will with Shane. And by the way, I'm not even 100. I mean, I would think it's common sense, human nature. You want to work with people that you know. There's a familiarity. Harbaugh's not coming in and say, Joe, I really think that we should draft this guy in the first round. The Joe Shane saying, I don't know, coach. I like this guy. Our scouts have graded him out for the last 4 months, and the combine's coming up, and that's not happening. Nobody thinks that. And if that's happening, just close up shop. Then the Giants may as well. I mean, then they're 2 levels below the Jets, which is basically physically impossible. So I don't think it's about him having the issue or like them wanting him. I think it's the other things that they're going to have to sort through, other very interesting openings here. And, I hope they don't mess this up. Let's get this guy up. Tony Terzi, what's going on? Tony, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate you checking in. I agree with Art Stapleton. Art's good. Does good work here. That if Philly loses their wild card game, Sirianni very well might be out and Harbaugh ends up there. I've said that. I said that yesterday. I said that the day before. Yeah. I mean, the way Philly looked at points this year where their offense couldn't do a damn thing. Thanks for the text there, Tony. Appreciate it, man. The issue and the issues that were present for a big chunk of the season for Philly, well, I mean, there's a level of tolerance down there as well. And unlike the Giants and the Jets, their bar is actually one of a championship level, which is nice. I mean, it'd be nice to get there, which hopefully both of these teams at some point will. And I think the Giants are closer based on the quarterback and all the other stuff, and probably going to have a real head coach here. At least I don't mean Aaron's not a real coach, but I mean a coach who's actually won and was a real asset rather than somebody who's figuring things out and was a disaster as a head coach this past season. Yeah. He also worked there for 9 years. And you talk about familiarity? Absolutely. I mean, that is something that could absolutely be in play. All right. I made the Martian. What the hell is going on with YouTube? I mean, I can't keep addressing this. Basically, I made an unknowing, like there was an infraction. And there's all these, rules with YouTube, which I get. And I'm certainly not here to not adhere to them. I want to. I just didn't know about this one thing. And it was nothing egregious. Like it was nothing where I said the wrong thing or a copyright or infringement or trademark. None of that stuff. It was something that was an innocent mistake on our end. And now they've got to go through the process of reviewing it. And, eventually this thing is going to be rectified. I didn't even get a strike or a warning. So it's below that. And it's going to be rectified. Listen, man, I appreciate the question. I just can't control it. Boy, I wish I could. Trust me, I really wish I could. What else we got here? All right, there you. Oh yeah, I don't know why it wasn't up for the first minute or so. So a lot of people saying there you are. All right, show's underway. There you go. The Stapleton thing. I want to give you a little something on the Knicks. I want to hit a few more of these. All right. Yeah, this one's interesting. This is more about Harbaugh, but this is interesting. So Stephen Ross is a Michigan man, as we know. Plus Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback at Michigan, and obviously we know what he did at Michigan. John Harbaugh's his brother. So is there an opening there? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, John Harbaugh is not a Michigan man. Jim is. So, but again, familiarity, trust, family name, sure. Put it this way. There's a very easy dialogue that can occur and a very easy conversation in terms of level of comfort based on Jim's history with Ross and with Michigan and all that stuff. So I would think that Jim will give John the most honest evaluation of Ross as an owner and all that stuff. And, here's the dialogue. Yep, that's going to be an issue there. There really is. Another something. By the way, throw some Jets up there as well. Let's go here. Yeah. Mazzilli 13. Ain't no more lisp in this mug. Hey, I figured it out. Thank God, man. And I told you what happened. It was a very basic mistake. Of course, whose mistake? It was mine. Wow. I wonder how I can make such a mistake, jumping onto this new platform and trying to figure this out on the fly on a tightrope with no net. I don't know. I wonder, how could that happen? Well, the technical answer is that this microphone, while the green button obviously tells you that I'm on, I unknowingly, on the laptop that's in front of me here, right there, I unknowingly had the my laptop microphone on, so it was catching, for lack of a better technical description, it was catching strays. So like it made it seem like I had a lisp, and it was not clear. It was not good. It was, what are you gonna do? I mean, come on. All right. So as these other ones are popping in here, let me give you a little something on our New York Knicks. Last night was about some pride for the Knicks. I had to see something here. And I tweeted before the game, I said, we're not going to learn a ton necessarily about the Knicks last night, but we're going to learn a little something here. Like, to get nutty, to go crazy over a couple of regular season losses in a row when you don't have your glue guy, Josh Hart. Although, I mean, come on. Yeah, you got Brunson, you got Cat, you got Bridges, you got OG, you got Deuce back. Win some games. Like, and I love Josh Hart. I love him. I'm one of his biggest fans, and every Knick fan loves him. But the inability to win games, you can't just say, well, it's because of Josh Hart. It's not like Patrick Ewing's gone, or, the one or two good teams that the Knicks had with Carmelo. Carmelo's out, or Amari. No, I mean, you should be able to plow through, but it's the NBA, and I thought last night was a good example because think about the Clippers where they got a lot of talent. They started the season 6-14, and then before last night, they had won 7 of 8. So they were playing a good team. It's the Clippers' only game at the Garden, and you know how it goes. Now Jordan and those guys would get more than one, but Magic comes in from the West Coast or, whomever. And any great Western Conference player over the years comes in, they want to put on a show. Even LeBron playing there a couple of times a year as a Cav or as a Heat, as a member of the Heat. Dwayne Wade, you want to go. Kobe coming in as once a year. You going for 50 or 60, you try to put on a show. So while the Clippers don't have a Kobe or somebody like that, they got a lot of talent. And I just wanted to see, like, all right, like how serious are the Knicks taking this losing streak? It's one thing to lose 4 games and not go nuts here, but if you lose at home again, what's it look like optically? Saw a lot of good things last night. Now, just want to reference something here because I heard I think Wally said this last night. Wally Zerbiak, who's great. Yeah. So not only were the Clippers winning and demonstrating that they would become the team that I think some people thought they would be at the start of the year, but like their defense was really good. So they won 7 of 8. In 6 of the 7 wins, they allowed 105 or fewer, which was going to be a good test for the Knicks defense, which obviously is very, very good. So I loved what I saw. And listen, anybody could look down at a piece of paper, and I'm going to do it for a second, and just give you a couple of numbers. But there's one that I want to elaborate on more in a little bit. So they shot it well, 50% overall. That's good. 43% from downtown, +8 on the backboard. But what I was really impressed with, I got to geek out for it. It's not quite baseball savant, but I'm going to geek out for a second here because I don't even think that I've referenced this stat in the NBA. And the Knicks had 31 assists last night, which just speaks to optimal ball movement. And then obviously guys making shot, but doing the right thing and sharing the ball, right? Well, the Knicks, this is amazing where we are as sports fans, right? The Knicks average 200, this is ridiculous, 290 passes per game. So midcourt, balls up, opening tip, final buzzer, they average 290 passes. Could be a full court pass, could be a half court pass that goes 3 feet, 290 passes. The previous game, they had 240. All right, well, that obviously speaks to a lack of ball movement, and that's the game where Karl-Anthony Towns only took 4 shots, right? He had 6 turnovers, didn't play well. So I needed to see the Knicks get back to, number one, playing with purpose and playing with pride, but doing what, if it's going to separate them from anybody, certainly in the Eastern Conference, being the best offense in the Eastern Conference. And last night was a good step in that direction. I was in the car and I was listening to Mike Brown's pregame show on the radio. And look, Mike Brown, he's got great perspective. Now, when you're the coach of the Knicks, nobody really wants to hear about life lessons like, did we win? Did we lose? Did we get back on defense? Are we healthy? Like, where are we at? But Mike Brown was talking about adversity. And he even started to go into, and I agree with this, like, if you don't have any adversity in your life, now hopefully, it's not irreversible adversity, but adversity builds character. And I think this is a prime example of what I'm trying to plow through here, you know? And I'm not trying to put myself up on a pedestal, but to think that I haven't dealt with adversity even before, the last month or so when things changed at the fan. What, are you kidding me? Of course. I mean, I could, without even thinking, my senior year in college, I had Tommy John surgery. Do you think that's a fun way to try to go through your senior year? Now, I knew I wasn't going to make it on the highest level, but it was my senior year, and I had already medically redshirted because I got in a car accident, a really bad one, on the Bell Parkway, about 2 days before I went to school, which was not a good way to start. And I had a red shirt my first year because I couldn't walk. I couldn't even start college right away, and that was tough, and I had to plow through it, right? And then when I got hurt, I hurt my elbow in fall practice, and I knew something was wrong. I'm like, what is this, man? It just, like, I knew something was really wrong. So finally, I go to the trainer and get the MRIs, blah, blah, blah. Go to HSS, have surgery November 1st. All right. And I was Dr. Olchek, passed away. Dr. Olchek, the former Mets doctor, Giants. He's the one who did my Tommy John surgery at HSS. And I had it I'll never forget this. I had it on November 1st, right? And the issue here is adversity. It's not a baseball story. Because it's not like the season went great. That's like I'm going to say, oh, yeah, by the way, I made first team all conference, hit 9 home runs, and hit 390. No, that didn't happen. But what I did do was come back and play on St. Patty's Day. So I had surgery November 1st, right? December's 1 month, January, February, March, 4 months, and basically 17 days I played in a Division I college baseball game. And my first at bat, I struck out. And my second at bat, I struck out. And my third at bat, I'll never forget. Third at bat, struck out. Fourth at bat, struck out. Now, we were playing Hofstra. We were playing somebody down south. It was like a big tournament, whatever. And, of course, I get up, bases loaded, true story, 2 outs, and it's tie score with the home team. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. 4 punch outs. I'm terrified to swing. I haven't even taken live batting practice in the game yet. First pitch, strike. Second pitch, strike. I'm looking at 5 strikeouts, man. I should not be playing here. Guy throws a little righty, 81, 82 mile per hour slider on the black. I kind of flick it foul down the third base line, lefty hitter, right? Wind up grinding out a walk, which felt like, Mazeroski's home run against the Yankees, like a walk. Like, you want to talk about feeling a sense of accomplishment? And that was in adversity, obviously. And I played that year, and I didn't play great, but I got through the whole year, and my elbow to this day still hurts because I came back too early like an idiot. But it taught me to deal with adversity. So when things went down at the fan or other things in my life, I guess I've calloused myself to deal with it. And that's why I know that's like a deeper, probably not, I don't even know if that was a very interesting story, whatever, but just this is what we're going to do. I mean, hopefully it'll be interesting, but if I got something to kind of weave in on a human level, I'm definitely going to do it. And I think you baseball players and former athletes will appreciate that. Because you want to talk about being vulnerable, being at a home plate with the bases loaded and it's 0-2 and you struck out your first 4 times and you got this monstrosity of a brace on your elbow. Oh, my God almighty. So Mike was, back to Mike Brown, Mike was talking about adversity and going through it, and he kind of branched into the life adversity, but adversity is a team. And I think that it was on point. And he stopped himself short, and I think rightfully so, of talking about real life. It wasn't like a free-flowing format where it's a 30-minute conversation. It's like 3-4 minutes meeting the media before the game. But I thought his messaging was really good. And when I heard that, I'm like, all right, they're ready to go tonight. They're ready to play. Now, the second half obviously was a lot better than the first half there, but I thought that was one of those nights in the NBA for a good team, not a perfect team, but certainly one of the better teams in the NBA, like the Knicks are, all right, despite the 4-game skid and being a couple of games behind the Pistons and now being in the 3rd seed, maybe tied. I got to double check. They were behind Boston last night. Maybe they're tied. Either way, I thought it showed a little bit their resolve and a little bit of a look into the window of their soul. Like, okay, all right, you guys do care the way we thought you cared. You guys do have the pride that many of us thought that you had. And maybe more importantly, you've got a coach who's able to identify this, eloquently speak to it, and then your team go out and back him up and play well and get a win there. So to think that last night was just one of 82 for the Knicks, I don't agree with that at all. There's no way. Yeah, I remember saying, was it Christmas Day? Well, I mean, I know the game was Christmas. Did I do a pod? I think I did it. Yeah. So December 26th, I did one of the first pods on the YouTube page. And by the way, all the content is there from even today's show will be, even though I can't live stream right now on YouTube, all the shows after this one, bang, uploaded right to YouTube at BT Unleashed. It's all there. Dive in, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, right? I was talking about the Knicks, and that was when Kolek really did well on Christmas Day, and they came back and they had that big deficit. And it was a really fun, I thought, galvanizing win. And then it just kind of disappeared. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to attribute that necessarily to the cup. But I remember saying shortly thereafter, like, all right, guys, there's only a couple of games out of 82. It's not the NFL where we measure every week like it's literally a season rather than a singular game. Like every NFL Sunday, especially, for the Jets, like in September when they're still in it, and the Giants, when they're still in it, it takes on this heaviness that leads to just a different energy and a different dissection of the performance, and rightfully so. Because if you start out 0-4 in the NFL, there's a couple teams that have plowed through. The Jets did that once with Herm, maybe 0-4, 0-5, maybe even before they beat the Chargers years ago and got going a little bit. But if you have a donut next to your name in September, you're done. Think about the Clippers. They started 6-14. I just said that before, and they had won 7 of 8 going into last night. So I don't go nuts about a rough regular season game or a rough regular season stretch, but I've always thought that there's a couple of measurement games where you can circle, whether it's the team that you think you're going to play in the finals in your conference to get to the NBA finals, or the team in the other conference that everybody, mainly you, perceived to be your chief threat to a title. Back in the day, all right, Ewing's playing the Bulls. Let's go. Let's see where we're at. Obviously, you have a matchup now against the Denver or the Spurs with Wemby, or obviously OKC. All right, let's see where we're at. Now, what bothered me about the Pistons game is that the Pistons took that as a measurement game, and the Knicks did not. And that was utterly unacceptable. So that's why when I say last night was let's lift up the hood and see what kind of guts these guys have. Let's see where the level of pride is at. I thought the Knicks looked really good last night, got back to doing what they do. And it seemed, and the stats bear this out based on the 31 assists and getting back to great ball movement where they averaged 290 passes a game. And they got back to that last night, despite having 50 fewer the previous game. It showed me that there's a little in-season tweak and adjustment. Like Jalen Brunson was not as ball dominant last night as he's been. Now, that's part of the brilliance of Brunson. Hey, go get us a bucket, man. Let's go. We're double team, whatever. Get out of it. Get the ball back. Sublime footwork. Fall the way 3. Get to the rim. Floater. Like, we need 2. Jalen Brunson's the guy to go get it. But I also thought that, and I think that I really believe this, like as great as Brunson is, the onus is on him. Sure, Mike Brown to devise stuff and whatever. He's got to make sure that Karl Anthony Towns doesn't get 4 shots in 22 minutes. Now, the onus is also on Karl Anthony Towns to stop flailing away with the stupid fouls, and he looked good last night. To be assertive in the post, demand the ball, get to the rim, get to the stripe, but he can't do it without the ball. So there's got to be that interplay there, and I thought last night we had it. It was pretty good. And let me get a couple of comments here. Let's see what we got. What's this here? I think McCarthy would be better for Dart, Agent 00. Yeah. I'd like to know the reasoning. I'm sure I could guess what it is. Thank you for that, buddy. I would think that it's because he's done it with multiple quarterbacks there. Whereas, Harbaugh inherited an amazing defense, one of the best of all time, and a young quarterback. To be fair to Harbaugh, a lot of people didn't even believe should be a quarterback, which I thought, honestly, if you watched Lamar Jackson in college, that some of the pre-draft evaluation and noise, it was reprehensible. And I don't use that word too much because that's I think that's over-sensationalizing sometimes. It was reprehensible the way he was perceived. Guy barely got drafted in the first round. Now, I'm not saying Lamar Jackson's not perfect, but if you watched Louisville, they ran a pro offense. You just had to watch Louisville. And if you didn't, maybe you had some preconceived notions about quarterbacks in the NFL. Antoine Randall L. back in the day. We know that, we know that there's been problems there. Now, we're past that, but Lamar might not be perfect, but neither is Dak Prescott. He's not perfect. He's not 50% the athlete. I mean, really, nobody is. That Lamar Jackson is. But what did Mike McCarthy do? He coached him up to finish second in the MVP. Right now, let me ask you a question. Is Dak Prescott one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the NFL? I mean, I don't think he is. And even guys on bad teams that had rough years, I mean, just think about, all right, so obviously Burrow's Bengals, the defense stinks and he was hurt. Burrow's better. Obviously, Allen's better. Mahomes' numbers have really dropped, but and now he's hurt. But you got to still say Mahomes is better. Stafford's better. There's at least, I don't even have all the teams in front of me. I know I'm missing 1 or 2 that's easy, but I think Dak's probably more 8, something like that. And he made him look like 1 or 2, so I get it. I get when you say that. Would I rather have McCarthy with Dart? Yes, more so than Harbaugh with Dart. But you can't just do it for the quarterback. That's got to be a big part of the calculus there. But, let's see. Mario Prosperino. What up, Mario? All right, no way Joe Schoen hiring an alpha like Harbaugh. He'd rather have a yes guy. Hence, Stefanski will be the next head coach. Well, all right, number one, where is the evidence that that's the case? Now, I'm in the business of being fair. I think that that's an unfair assertion. I respect your opinion, Mario. I do. I just don't think there's any evidence. I don't. Now, he also shouldn't have the juice to make that decision, which is an entirely different point of discussion here. But you're saying a couple of things, and it's a real leap of faith on your end. Not that you can't be right, but you can't prove that you are. Because number one, you're saying that he will not allow somebody in the building that is more alpha than him. I'm not even sure if Joe was out, whatever. But so you can't prove that. Number two, you say that Stefanski, which by the way would be a good hire by the Giants. I think Stefanski is very good, as I've said. And you're also saying that Stefanski does not have an alpha type of personality. And you could be wrong on that as well. I don't really know the answer to that. Yeah, more stuff on the YouTube stuff, guys. I can't keep addressing that. Trust me, I'm trying to plow through it. If I get wrapped up in that, I'm going to be really, really frustrated here. So I am still at the point now, guys. I am still at the point, and maybe if you're new, I'm going to say this very quickly. I'm not going to belabor it. I am still at the point where the thing that matters most to me is content, is getting on the air and firing out what I'm thinking, structuring a show, and then all the other stuff, All right, I think we got the audio under control. I figured out how to drop the messages right onto the screen here. I figured out how to link it to X so that once, it can now simultaneously go there. It's going to be on Instagram. The studio redesign is, already past phase 1. I've got the concept. Now we've got to build it out, make that whole back wall the logo, which we're in the process of doing. Got to hire a producer, which would allow me to do guests and eventually incorporate calls. I get it, man. I mean, there's a lot that I have to do here, but I'm pretty happy where we're at right now, except a little issue with YouTube. Ian Grossman. All right, BT, you're the Jets GM. How does the offseason go in your perfect world? I know I'm going to sound like a pompous ass right now, and I really don't. I mean it a little bit, but I don't fully mean it because I don't understand the contracts and like the CBA stuff and some of it. So it's a very broad statement. But don't you think that you could do – I like Moochie, so forget about him. Don't you think that we could have done a better job with the Jets all these years? Honestly, if Joe from Queens, if Mike from Brooklyn, if Willie from Cedar Grove, if Paul from Parsippany was the general manager of the Jets, can you tell me that the results would not be better? Can you tell me that definitively? You can't tell me that. You can't. And by the way, how much worse could they be, first and foremost? So I know that that's really glossing over a lot of things that I don't know about being a GM, that I will never know, and that I really don't care to know. But, same thing all those years the Knicks were in the toilet, and even some of the baseball moves with the Yanks and the Mets. I think we all think that we could do it on some level. Now, to think that we could do what Cashman has done is probably ridiculous because they win a lot. But when the Knicks were in the toilet all those years, going through Fizdale and Hornacek and Fisher, I couldn't do that. I promise you I could have done that. So anyway, let me answer Ian's question. All right. You're the Jets GM. How does the offseason go in your perfect world? That is I'm going to have to take a little sip of coffee here, Joe, and really, Ian, pardon me, really contemplate this. Okay. Contemplation complete. Thank you for the text, Ian. The first level of perfection will be a sequence of events that put the Jets in a position to do whatever they want. Now, what does that mean? That's a very nebulous description. Well, here it is. Number one, I almost want Mendoza to play poorly in the national semifinal game. I've already seen enough. He's the man. He's going to be phenomenal. I see a lot of Matt Ryan with him, and I love Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan's a Hall of Famer. I love Matt. Matt Ryan was great. Won an MVP. Like, if you're Matt Ryan, we good. We're in pretty good shape if you're Matt Ryan. And he's a better athlete than Matt Ryan. A little quicker and about the same size. And I think we'll project to be even a little thicker, because he's 6'5", 225. I think he gets up to 235. I don't think Matt ever played a two. Right now, Matt looks like he's a cross-country runner. He's really thinned out doing the TV. He's good on TV. So the first thing is I would like to see Mendoza play poorly. And then subsequently, I would like to see Dante Moore play really well, because that could be the enticement. And let's face it, as much as we whine and cry about the Jets, one team that's dumber is the Raiders. Now, they got Tom Brady, who very well might make the right decision and make the next 20 years hell for us again. Like, that's very possible. Matter of fact, part of me thinks that that's going to happen. But if Mendoza stumbles, Moore, and even if Moore doesn't win, but if Moore just looks the part, and there's a real decision inside that Raiders building, right? And now maybe one of these coaches is like, I love Dante Moore, man. I want to coach that kid. I know he's only 20. I know he's only 206 pounds. We got to get him in the weight room. He hasn't played a lot because he backed up last year behind Gabriel. He was a starter most of the year. First year at UCLA, got knocked around, took his lumps. Like, he doesn't have a ton of experience like Mendoza had. It's almost more like, well, Ty Simpson's more like Sanchez when the Jets took him. Obviously, Moore's played a lot more than that, but there's still a rawness with him. So the projectability of somebody like Dante Moore is there in terms of, okay, so there could be appeal there. And if that happens, to answer your question more directly, if that happens, well, now the Raiders have a decision, and then the Jets have no decision. If they take Dante Moore, well, you take Mendoza. If they take Mendoza and Dante Moore looks even better than I like him, I wouldn't take him at number 2 for the Jets right now. That's my opinion. That could change. I don't think it will unless he plays really well. He's just too raw. I don't think he's ready for the Jets. And not even to tap into the mindset that the Jets will ruin everybody like they usually do. I'm not even beholden to that. I just don't think he's ready for this. I even though the O-line's a lot better, I'd be very reluctant to do that. But if Muji thinks he's the man, then take him. Either way, by Moore playing great, Ian, it opens up an amazing world of possibilities for the Jets, because now they don't have to maybe trade up to get their quarterback, or maybe if they like more, or use those assets in 2027, 3 of which are in the first round, to do something this year or next year. If Moore is the real deal and they love him, you got your quarterback. You start there. And then really the other thing that you would have to do, you would probably use that if you use the second pick on a quarterback, and I don't know that they absolutely will, because Dante Moore could flop and he stays at Oregon, or he says, I'm not going to the Jets. Well, then the Jets could trade out of 2. That's an option. He goes back to Oregon, gets $11 million in NIL money. Jets have to do something different, get a bridge in here, and they could then maybe trade out of 2, get more assets, and then get the big receiver opposite Garrett Wilson. Listen, you need a corner, you need a safety. I think you one more offensive lineman away from having a top 3, top 4 O-line in football. I said that yesterday. The Jets O-line is between Olu Fashanu and Memboot on the right side. They love Tittman, got the extension. Simpson could walk, whatever. Myers. I think that it's really good. And then you throw in, like, if the Jets start next season with one more O-lineman, and we got to see what they do with Breece Hall as well. But let's assume he's back for a second. The Allen's healthy, Isaiah Davis, good running game. Garrett Wilson, 6'3", 210 guy on the outside, 50-50 ball, red zone threat, like Keyshawn. Think about Keyshawn, but maybe a little bit faster. Mason Taylor, Ruckert's a good blocker, good O-line. Now you start using these assets on defense. And I do think there's a chance and a way for the Jets to have not a good offseason, but a great offseason. And then you factor in that they've got $75 million in free agent money. There is a way for the Jets to get very competitive very fast. I don't want to see shortcuts, though. I'm not interested in that. Hey, you waited this long. Do it the right way. Let's go. And I think that Muji is really, like, the early signs for me with Muji are really positive. I really think the Jets, I know it sounds nuts. I really think that the the Jets nailed it with Muji. I really do. I already hit Serpico there. So let's see. I want to give you a little something on the Yankees as well. Let's see. How about this? All right, we can pop this around here. Mistro cards. Hey, BT, if the Packers lose on Saturday, do you see LaFleur being fired and Harbaugh maybe being an option, or do you think he would go someplace else? Listen, I don't think that the Green Bay situation myself is as tenuous. Like, I know there's talk about that. I get it. We've heard it, no doubt. I'm not saying it's completely off the table. Unless they look awful, right? I think LaFleur maybe gets one more year. I'd probably say more yes than no. I think there is even before the Ravens fired Harbaugh, like think about the last 5 weeks or so, the conversations, even going back to last year, but more recently. Harbaugh, to me, seemed, if it didn't finish well, he was gone. Tomlin won that game, so he's in the playoffs, but if they play poorly against the Texans, as I've said, I think that there's a really good chance, thank you for the text there, that they're going to move on from him. And I would think that LaFleur would get one more. I just feel like it's a little bit of a different timeline. I don't even really know if I could substantiate that. Maybe because the noise is not quite as loud and the signals are not quite as evident. I don't know. What's this here? Oh, the video of my son ripping it into the net in the basement was legit. Yeah, there's a lot of good players out there. He's having fun. He's working hard. And that's the other thing, too, that on this channel, I'm not going to do it now, but on this channel, you're going to get a lot of youth sports content. You know, you guys know I coach. All right, save the jokes. I know I got ejected. Relax. You know, unfairly ejected, but I got ejected. The appeal was denied. No, you know how I feel about youth sports. And I'm up to my neck in it with both kids, and I've seen it. It changed so much from when I was young. The cost, the pressure, the responsibility, the options, club, travel, U-Trip bats, USA bats, this, that. Do you go play in national tournaments? Like, these are things I've already gone through and am in the process of going through now. And there's already one up there on my channel. I think I did it. Yeah, I did it the night. I think I did it December 31st, like in the afternoon at some point. And I scheduled it to air on New Year's Day, so I wasn't going live on New Year's Day. And it was about how to prepare your child for T-ball, like their first venture into Little League. And it's not about going out there and, having a 3-hitter and a shortstop from the get-go. No, it's more about just avoiding some of the pitfalls that, as a first-time parent, let's face it, man, it's not like when we were young. All right, sign them up for the church team. All right, you're on this travel team that's right across the street. Now, a good one, but it's right across the street from our home in Marine Park playing for the Cadets. That's the best team around. Like, it is such a different landscape that it's overwhelming. And I do put a lot of that stuff up there. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. I know it's not for everybody because not everybody is a parent yet. Whatever. So let's see here. Bozak Sacamano. I think I said that right. That is a jacked up. Now, are you that jacked up? Jeez, that is a jacked up looking dude. It's a good avatar. Bro, this is why the show's great. Sports, life, politics. We'd love to hear about your baseball stats throughout your career. No, you don't. You don't want to hear. No, I don't think anybody wants to hear about that. Here's the short version. High school was excellent. College, disappointing. Always hurt. Didn't get it done. That's the shortest version that I could give you. I'm not going to start ripping through my high school. Although if I was to do one of the two, I could probably pick on the high school stats more so than college. But no, I was hurt a lot. And that's something I've talked a lot about. Like, it still bothers me, It still bothers me. A very prideful person, put the work in, just didn't happen. And I think it goes into sometimes wanting something too much, where you can almost squeeze too hard. And I think you complicate it. I don't know if I did that in college. Maybe trying to overcome the injuries. I unknowingly did it. But yeah, I mean, trust me, if I ever make the Hall of Fame at Marist, it's not for being a player. It's for whatever I've done post leaving the campus. You know what I mean? All right, let me get this more on the YouTube stuff here. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Something on the Jets here. Okay, let me just give you something. Where was it? On the Yankees really quick. I can't go too much longer. I got to take a shower. I got to shave. I got to get out to Queens, and I've got to sit down. I've got to tape the first interview with the Red Storm Report today with my guy Patino, who I will absolutely get on this show very, very soon once I'm able to. So maybe I shouldn't say soon because this is dragging on more than I thought. All right, so the Cabrera deal, right? What I don't get, now they gave up in that trade, the Cubs gave up their number one prospect, who their overall number one, who is a top 50 prospect in all the baseball. I'm not going to inundate you with that stuff like, oh, this, that ranking is the different outlets, 47 here, 52 here. They're just top 50 prospect, their number one prospect, short version. And somebody else who I think was number 11, and another player who I don't know was even ranked. They gave up a lot, is what I'm saying, for Cabrera. So there's some history there, some inconsistency, some issues with the injuries as well. I was interested in Cabrera. I was never on the Cabrera train at any cost. I think that's idiotic. Now, the Yankees are going to have a very interesting 2-month start to the season here because they're going to be rolling out Yarborough. They're going to be rolling out Will Warren. They're going to be rolling out Cam's a beast, but still year 2. Guys will make adjustments off him, and then he's got to do the same. But his stuff is top shelf, so he'll be great. I'm not worried about him. But he's still got to show it as a sophomore that he's that guy that we think he is, that he was against the Red Sox in the playoffs and many other starts before that. But you're rolling out a lot, and of course, Fried, you got Luis Heel. But while Cole and Rodon, and then eventually Schmidt deeper in the summer, as they're working their way back to health, and if there's no setbacks, they're both going to miss 2 months-ish. Like that's a lot of turns through the rotation where you are beginning to define who you are in the division, and the division's not soft. It's probably the best division in baseball. I know the NL East is really good as well. I know the NL West has a lot of talent. I get that. But I think top to bottom, I think the most competitive right now division of baseball is the American League East. So, that does not necessarily entitle the Yankees to just waltzing through the start in a snooze, in a slumber, as guys get healthy, and especially now without any upgrades, and we'll see about Bellinger and whatever else they might do, Bichette, whatever. And when I can't wait for that stuff to break. Like, I'm waiting on that. Like, I'm waiting for the Yanks to do something. I'm waiting for the Mets to do something. Those shows are going to be phenomenal. But the Cabrera stuff, this is why I'm bothered by the Amai stuff. Well, what does Amai have to do with Cabrera? I'm going to tell you. The Yankees had a chance. I don't know how good Amai is. Everybody says he's not Yamamoto. All right, he's probably not. Very few are. We read the scouting reports. He throws this hard. Here's his K rate. Here, we all know the numbers if you dive into the advanced stuff, right? But we don't know how he's going to be at the major league level. We don't know that. But don't you think that that's a risk worth taking? Like, they need another starter. If they don't get, and I think that they will, Peralta, whatever. But if they don't get another starter, you can't tell me that it's not on the table where the Yankees are, well, it's 12-15. They get off to a middling start, and you're playing uphill the rest of the season. And then when the guys come back, you better hope that there's not number one, a setback, as I said, but also a period where they're transitioning back to what their baseball cards say, more so Cole than Rodon. And as that's happening, the Yankees had a chance to bring somebody in that was very valued around baseball and was gotten on a very team-friendly deal, and all it would have cost was money. So if the reluctance is, and I wouldn't give up Lombard for Cabrera. There's no way I'm doing that. You want Spencer Jones? All right, maybe I'll have that. Yeah. I think Dominguez is probably more viable than Jones. He just strikes out a ton. I don't know how that's going to change and rectify itself against better pitching when you strike out twice a game in the minors. Like, that's problematic. I know he's got the size. I know he's got the speed. I know he's a good center fielder, much better than Dominguez, better outfielder. I know he's light tower, power, bombs, missiles, 450 feet, beautiful Yankee Stadium swing. Is he going to strike out 237 times if he plays a whole year? I would have to ask, why wouldn't we think that he would, when everything that he's put on film and statistically as a minor leaguer says that he is an incredibly high volume, north of 30% strikeout guy. Like, that's like, I think in the majors, it's going to be closer to 40% without a real overhaul to approach or tweaking mechanics, whatever it might be. So I would be more willing to give him up, even though he's a better fielder than Dominguez, because at least Dominguez has shown hit 260 last year, 20 steals, 9-10 home runs. I think there's something there with Dominguez. But they could have bought Amai, plugged him in, and, like, this is one thing that's driving me nuts, and I got to wrap it up after this guy. I really do have to shower and get out to Queens. I don't understand why the Yankees and the Mets, by the way, are both so behind the curve of structuring these modern contracts. Like, what the hell is so hard about deferring money, Like, how do the Astros get Amai for what they got him for with opt-outs? Like, that would have been so appealing, more for the Yankees, I think, but even for the Mets, really appealing for the Yankees in this regard. Okay, Amai. What did he get? 60, whatever. I don't know, whatever the total number was. I forget the number, but I know it was 3 years with opt-outs, right? So, and it's his opt-outs. Opt-out after one, opt-out after two. So let me get this straight. Yankees give Amai the same deal. And maybe he wasn't amenable to that with the Yankees. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want to come to the Yankees. I don't know. But I also don't believe that kind of contract was presented to Amai at all. Like, I feel pretty good saying that. So if it was presented and he did bite and he comes here with the ability to opt out after one, well, guess what? If he has a great season, guess who wins? You win. Because then he's going to opt out. He's going to give you, and I'll throw numbers at you. Let's say he would have gone or goes, I don't want to go crazy here, 15-9 with a 3.18 ERA. Whip is good. Walk rate's fairly low. K rate's good. Durable. Like a good year, like a really good season. He's opting out. And then he opts out, and you're free. Now, you can re-engage him if you want, but you have solved the absence for the first 2 months on a larger level without giving out a prospect. Like, that's what I didn't get. And those are the little things about the lack of modern approach with some of these things is incredibly frustrating. I don't get it. Like, I do understand not wanting to give up a top prospect that is a bit of a wild card. All right, the Cubs rolled the dice. They gave up their top guy, top 50 in baseball. That's the Cubs. I mean, Cubs don't win anything. I'm not saying the Cubs are well run, in terms of the Cabrera trade. But, man, they could have had Amai not give up a prospect, and then the incentive on Amai's end to have an amazing season is there because he wants to opt out and get 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 more $1 million after he opts out. I did not understand that. So one of the things that bothers me, one of the things that's got to be addressed here, and one of the things that we'll continue to follow on the show, BT Unleashed here. All right, let me start right. Maybe I got one more comment. Yeah, they did get a hole for the Clippers for Cabrera. I totally agree. Let me hit this one up. Kyle, my son isn't into sports as I wish he'd be. Trying not to force it. Yeah, I mean, that's tricky. As I spoke on the pod about, getting your little one ready for Little League T-ball or softball, my kids are totally different, I'm working on it. He's still young, and it's a good thing, but it's also something that he has had to work on. Like, he treats every game like it's Game 7 of the World Series. Even 2 nights ago, playing a basketball game, like the ref missed the call, and the ref definitely missed the call, but he was fired up. Now, I will take that intensity and that passion for playing hard and the aptitude, because if you don't have that, you can't give that to somebody. I believe it's easier to, smooth somebody out, and that's one of the things that my wife and I are doing, rather than trying to coerce it out of something. Like, if you're not naturally funny or naturally engaging or naturally conversational, you're a little bit more withdrawn. I'm just talking in general now. You're not going to suddenly be the guy who, in the middle of the party is like he's up on stage cracking one-liners, the life of the party. That's just not you. You're going to be, more to yourself and maybe engaged in a little group. But we all know that guy. And a lot of times I was that guy. That guy in high school, that guy in college, that girl in high school, that girl in college, in the middle of everything, right? So if you're not predisposed to be that way from a personality trait, you're not going to be that way. The sport, and my daughter's very different than that. Like, she plays hard, but hey, you want to go down and hit some balls? I don't know. You want to go down? Let's dribble. And I don't force it, right? She just says, I love the games. All right. She's 9, so I'm not gonna go nuts here. But if you want to, I'm saying to myself, if you want to keep playing in games as you get older, games of relevance, eventually this model is going to have to shift a little bit where you might not love practicing, but you understand the importance. Right now, she's not there yet, whatever. But I would say for that, Kyle, man, that's a tricky one. I would say that I think the hardest thing or the worst route to take, right, would be to, just throw the bat in their hands or go to the park and shoot hoops and drill them. Like, that is not, if they don't have there's not a natural interest of them wanting to play and having fun, then I'm not a psychologist. I'm going to tell you what I'm going through and what I went through myself and whatever, and some of the kids I coach. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for that. I think the easy thing would be to say, keep it fun, right? But I think the way you get into that to maybe spark that interest, I don't know the age. I really do wish I knew the age. If the child's 6 or 7, that's different. If the child's 11 or 12, that's really different because there is, as much as I hate this, there is an expiration point earlier than it's ever been with young athletes getting out there and immersing themselves in their sport and now their specialization and all, which I don't really agree with, and all those other things I'll talk about on the pod. I would say whatever your favorite team is, let's say you're a big Yankees fan or a big Knicks guy, sit down and make it fun and watch the game and talk about the game a little bit, maybe have him pretend he's the play-by-play announcer. I don't know. There is one thing, and I'll definitely leave you with this. This is definitely in the other pod, but since a few of you have popped up some of these questions, I'll give you this here. So it was right during COVID. So he was like 4 years, right before he was like 4. I would go in the yard, right? Like, to me, the greatest urgency is to create urgency within a young athlete. And I don't mean, oh, God, I'm not talking about I got to be the best. I mean the urgency to run with vigor, to chase a ball, to run hard. Like, that's the first entry into being a young athlete. And I think and I did this, and it was fun, man. I miss these days, God. I would go in the yard, and I didn't even like have this name of a game or necessarily even this intention, but it just hit me, and it morphed into something fun and something good. It's helped them. I developed this game called the 7-second game. And we would be on one end of my yard, and I'd have a wiffle ball bat, and I'd have a wiffle ball, like a bunch of wiffle balls, right? Because we were hitting out there, whatever. All right, let's play a game. Come on. And I would hit the ball, and he'd have his glove on, and I would hit it to the other side of the yard, sometimes try to wrap it around the house. And I would literally count down 1, 2, 3. And I would give him a 7-second, maybe it'd even start a 10-second game. And then I'd cut it down to 7. Of course, you got to keep pushing it. Eventually, we got to the 5-second game. And within my count, which is I obviously have a loud voice, the whole neighborhood could probably hear it. He's running after the ball with an urgency because now he knows, all right, I'm running after the ball and I'm running after it within a required amount of time, and I'm having fun doing it. And early, now he got most of them very early, from the get-go. But there were some, like if it ricocheted off a fence or a house or whatever, a tree, I would then say, if I was getting to 7 or 10 and he hadn't gotten the ball yet, and I didn't think he would, I would say 5, 6, 6.5, 6. Like I would make it fun, and then he would get the ball and then he'd run back. I don't know if that's perfect, but what I do know is that when T-ball, and I was obviously doing some other stuff as a former player with him, but as he got to the T-ball field, guess who was ready to run after every ball, even if it was on the other side of the diamond? He was. So I think if you start with just having fun and making it a game and tapping into their competitiveness without going over the top, and by the way, that in itself is a tough struggle, I've had moments where I'm like, that was too much. I've seen other friends and other young players that specifically my son plays with that, their parents have made mistakes that I've made. It is what it is. There's no roadmap to doing it the right way. And so nobody's perfect. I don't know if that's the perfect answer, only because I don't think that there is one. But short version, start with fun, get the urgency going, and just start there. All right, I got to run. I got to shower. I got to get out to Queens. I will upload the Red Storm report on the YouTube page as well. It airs every Friday and Saturday on MSG. So I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it. If you don't have MSG or you don't have the app, whatever it might be, I will upload them to YouTube. Hopefully, I'm not gonna front. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh yeah, the YouTube stream will be fixed by tomorrow. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I hope that it will be. In the meantime, go to the page at BT Unleashed. Comments, like it, spread the word. Please subscribe. The more you guys do, the more I can do, the more traction we get, the more I can build it out, and the more we can turn this into what I am on a mission to turn this into. So let's see what the Giants do with it. And this is obviously not the end of the conversation with Harbaugh, but let's really see how they handle this. Let's see now Harbaugh, Miami, how that factors in, and it's going to on some level. You could bet on that, even if it's just on a cursory level. Good job by the Knicks last night, punching back and showing a little bit of pride and some fight and ending that 4-game skid against a team that was hot and has some talent. And then obviously the Amai, more about Amai than the Cabrera situation. with the Yankees, their reluctance to just spend money and circumvent giving up prospects, which they did not do, and I don't know why. So have a great rest of your Thursday. Tomorrow we'll get into all the football games as well, all the games over the weekend, the wild card stuff. I'll make the picks. You'll know, there'll be something else with the Giants at some point here. Maybe something breaks with the Yanks and the Mets. And in the meantime, have a great day. I appreciate you guys. You know I do. I really appreciate you. And I will see you tomorrow live at 10. See ya.